We would like to welcome each and every one of you to yet another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. How are you doing here on this Thursday night? I'm so excited to be here. We have got a jam-packed show, but before I get into the show, just a reminder that you are listening to us on WQEE 99.1 FM, the key out of Noonan, Georgia. I am on that radio station Monday through Friday from 2 to 3, right on after Rod Peterson. I got to tell you, I've had such a fun time. I was able to get on Rod Peterson's show today, right before my show came on the radio station. It was a lot of fun, and I was glad that I was able to get on the show. And Rod has been on my show, and I had him this week. I've had Tanya Chavez. I've had some pretty good guests. The guest list will continue next week. You want to stick around and find out. But this is a very special show because we have got a big day in high school football for the Chattahoochee Valley tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock is Muskogee County High School Media Days. And myself and Thrift Behringer for Georgia Alabama Sports Live will be live streaming the event. And I'm so excited to be a part of this. And it is my first media days. And I'm really excited about high school football being 15 days away and everything that's going on. What I'm going to do on this show is I'm going to break down some of the key games during the season. I've got a top 10 for West Georgia and East Alabama that I'm going to reveal. This will be my preseason top 10. And at the end of the show, I'll get into my NFL 32 teams in 32 days as I'm going to preview the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to talk about Harris County Little League, and the Braves had a day off today. And, I almost forgot, the latest Women's World Cup update, because a lot of craziness going on as we get into the round of 16. But first things first, let's talk about high school football here in the Chattahoochee Valley. By the way, myself and Thrift Behringer, we're going to be live streaming a lot of games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I'm really looking forward to this season. If you missed any of the content, just go and like the Facebook page, Georgia Alabama Sports Live. He has got a lot of great content, and we have been doing a coaches conversation, state of the programs, as we go through all the high schools in the Chattahoochee Valley, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing my broadcast colleagues tomorrow at the Muskogee County School District there on Macon Road. And the media days will start at 10 o'clock. So you want to check that out. And we're going to go through schools like Carver, Northside, Spencer, Hardaway, Shaw, Columbus, Kendrick, Jordan. I mean, looking forward to seeing all the schools, as it's going to be a great time. And, I'm looking at the schedule right now. Let's see. Week 1, like I mentioned, high school football is 15 days away, and we are going to have some scrimmages in the next couple of weeks. They're back to school at Muskogee County next week. And you know what that means. When the calendar hits August and the kids go back to school, that means that the kids on the gridiron start putting on the pads like they did all summer, and they get ready for that first scrimmage. I mean, we have Spencer taking on Columbus in a scrimmage. Hardaway is going to be in a scrimmage. And it's going to be great. Now, some of the schools like LaGrange, they're having their scrimmage, the blue team taking on the white team. And when I talk about covering high school football in the Chattahoochee Valley, I'm including the entire Chattahoochee Valley. What's going to happen is I'm going to have a high school football scoreboard show every Friday night where I have another top 10. I get you to vote on the high school game of the week for that week. And I talk about all the high schools in East Alabama and West Georgia. And so I'll cover teams all the way down to Eufaula in East Alabama, Stewart County down in West Georgia, all the way north as Hanley and Heard County. And because this radio station is on in Noonan, I want to give a shout out to all the high schools in Noonan as well, like East Coweta, Noonan, Starrs Mill, Fayette County, and Whitewater. A lot of great schools up in the Noonan area as well. All right, let's dive into week 1, because This party gets kicked off on Thursday night at Callaway Stadium, where the LaGrange Grangers, they lost in the first round of Burke County, but they snuck their way into the playoffs for 2022 by defeating their longtime rival, Troup County, in a win and in situation for LaGrange. It was Troup County's first loss of the season. The Grangers, led by head coach Matt Napier, looks like a very good team, and they look to compete in their region, a very tough region with Troup County, Starrs Mill, Fayette County, and Whitewater. Oh, and I forgot about Trinity Christian as well, another great team that made the playoffs last year. But the LaGrange Grangers are taking on Carver of Atlanta on Thursday, August the 17th. Carver of Atlanta is a very tough team from 3A. They're one of my favorites to make a deep run in the playoffs. And then we got a bunch of games on Friday, August the 18th. Let's start with the game at Kinnett Stadium. The Northside Patriots taking on the Columbus Blue Devils. This is a rivalry game, and it's nice to see these non-region games in the beginning of the high school football season, which has a lot of bragging rights, especially for that area of Columbus. And it's going to be great. Northside went to the second round of the playoffs last year, and they're looking forward to being at Kinnett, which is a true road game for Northside, but you're going to see a lot of Northside fans on the visitor side as both Columbus and Northside share Kinnett Stadium as the home stadium. Over in Columbus, we also have Otis Spencer Stadium, the brand new stadium that was built last season. The Spencer Green Wave is hosting Greenville. Now, Greenville, Spencer played them last year, so this is kind of a home and home. Greenville is a very good football team in 1A Division II. They're in the same division with Manchester, Schley County, Chatco, Marion County. And I know this is not football related, but Greenville is also the high school for the two-time NBA champion Contavious Caldwell Pope. But they do have a very good football team as well. And I want to try to cover Greenville on this show as well because they are part of the Chattahoochee Valley. They're taking on the Spencer Green Wave at Otis Spencer Stadium, week 1. Spencer won their first region championship in school history. However, they did lose to Berrien in the first round, 43-36 last year. Spencer's got Gary Gaither coming back. Great quarterback, and he's got some pocket presence. And Spencer, with head football coach Joe Kegler, they're going to look pretty good. All right, we also have at A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium, the Carver Tigers taking on the Hardaway Hawks. Now, Carver made it all the way to the quarterfinals last year, and second-year head coach Pierre Coffey going up against first-year head coach Ryan McKenzie for the Hardaway Hawks. Now, Hardaway missed the playoffs last year. They're looking to bounce back, especially in the region with Shaw. So we'll see what happens. I'm just excited. On Friday, we get all 3 football stadiums in action in Columbus, and there is just so many options. If you are a high school football fan, so many options in Columbus to go to all 3 places. And then let's talk about some of the teams in Columbus that are going to be on the road for week 1. The Shaw Raiders, led by first-year head coach Johnny Gardner, they are traveling to Buena Vista, Georgia, to take on Marion County. You have Harris County, that's going to be at Callaway Stadium, taking on their longtime rival, Troup County. And then you have the Central Red Devils. They just had their media day the other day. Central, one of the top teams in 7A. They did make it to the semifinals last year, but fell to Auburn. Central won a state title back in 2018. Their head coach, Patrick Nix. If you look at Central and their team, they've got a lot of players. In fact, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama, wide receiver Cam Coleman, plays for Central. Also, Rydarius Morgan, a 3-star safety, and Isaiah Fega, a 3-star defensive tackle. That's a lot of firepower for the Central Red Devils, who are used to sending guys to the favorite college teams playing on Saturday. They are a juggernaut when it comes to recruiting 4- and 5-star athletes. and the Central Red Devils should be one of the top teams in the Chattahoochee Valley. Let's look at some other teams that are in action as well. You have the Glenwood Gators taking on the St. Anne Pacelli Vikings at the Swamp. Now, Glenwood played at Diamond Field on the campus of Pacelli last year, and it's great when you have an AISA team and a team from the GIAA to arrange this, something that couldn't have happened when Pacelli was in the GHSA Division I private. But now they're in the GIAA, they're able to have the freedom to take on a team from the AISA. And so 2 outstanding private schools going at it for week 1. And really not a whole lot going on in week 1. Russell County's got a scrimmage game. Smith Station doesn't play till the next week. And so moving on to week 2, and I'm going to go a little fast in this. Thursday, August the 24th, you got a doubleheader. You got Columbus taking on the Jordan Red Jackets at Kinnett Stadium. And then you got Shaw taking on Kendrick at Otis Spencer Stadium. Friday, you got Russell County taking on Harris County. Glenwood is taking on Brookstone. And the Heritage Bowl, Carver taking on Spencer. Troup County is taking on Hardaway at A.J. McClung. And LaGrange is taking on Northside. And it's also the home opener for Calvary Christian. They are taking on Pinecrest Academy. You got Pacelli that is home against Tatnall Square Academy. And you also have Central. Did I get that right? Yes, Central is taking on Hewitt Trussville. So I think that game is going to be on the 25th. All right. I'm only going to do the first 2 weeks. Otherwise, this is going to be a long show. Every Friday, I would actually preview the weeks in high school football leading up to the season. And now I'm going to reveal here on the Sports Beat my top 10 teams for East Alabama and my top 10 teams for West Georgia. If you agree with me, leave a message in the comments. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm also live on YouTube, and leave a 5-star review. All right. East Alabama. I'm going to start with the number 1 team in East Alabama. These are my rankings based on their strength, their pathway to the state championship. So it does not make a difference if this school is in the AISA or in the AHSAA. It doesn't matter if they're 7A, 2A. These are the teams. If I rank the team number 1, what that means is that I think this team has the easiest path to win their state championship respectively. So number 1, there's no question that I think the Central Red Devils are the number 1 team in East Alabama in the Chattahoochee Valley because of the talent coming back. And Cam Coleman is the best wide receiver in Alabama. He's undecided, but he could pretty much go anywhere. Central did not lose a whole lot when they lost Carmelo English, A.J. Harris, and Tamarian Parker. Those 3 were on the team last year. Jalen Epps was their quarterback. And I know that they just had their media days. That would have been pretty cool to actually go to Central's media days. Looking at Central's schedule, they take on Hewitt Trussville on the road. Hewitt Trussville is a top 5 team in Alabama. They don't have an easy schedule. They got to play Auburn. Opelika is going to improve. And they have 2 new schools. They're not really new schools, but Johnson Aubrey Gratis, which is the former Jefferson Davis, and Percy Julian, which is the former Robert E. Lee. That surprised me. I looked at the schedule. I'm like, who are these schools? But those schools were changed, their names. All right. Dothan, who surprised a lot of people making it to the playoffs last year, winning their first game and making it to the second round of the playoffs. A big shout out to Philip Jordan that's down at Dothan as 96.5 down there. And I know that they're coming to take on Central at Garrett Harrison Stadium on October the 6th. And that's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Number 2, the Auburn Tigers. Coach Etheridge got a good team. They went to the state championship last year, but they fell to Thompson. I think Auburn's going to have a good season. They play Hoover to start the year. You still got to play Central, still got to play Opelika. You still have a region with teams like Enterprise and Prattville, and you have a lot of great teams. And now Dothan has improved. So it should be pretty interesting. I have Auburn at number 2. Number 3, I have Lee Scott Academy. They did win the AISA championship. Last year, they made a statement coming out of the gate, beating Chambers Academy 33-0 week 1. Because of that, Lee Scott Academy pretty much dominated everybody with the exception of Glenwood. Glenwood kept it close a couple of times in the regular season and then in the championship. And these two teams will square off on September the 15th. This is definitely a candidate for high school game of the week. I will reveal my high school game of the week candidates. I'm only going to choose 4 because the Twitter poll will only allow me to select 4. You get to vote on it. I will actually reveal who my high school game of the week is, and we'll go ahead and go from there. All right, number 4, the Glenwood Gators. Head coach Ryan Nelson's got a pretty good team. Dallas Crow is coming back. Yes, they're going to miss JT Banks, great running back. They're going to miss Aaron Burton, a very good wide receiver. But looking at Glenwood's schedule, they take on Pacelli in the Swamp. They got to travel to Max Strawn Stadium to take on Brookstone. I mean, they're taking on Fort Dale Academy, Bessemer Academy. Yeah, that Lee Scott game is going to be a tough one. And then their final game, October 27th, is a non-region game taking on Chambers Academy. I think even if Glenwood, last year they started out 0-2. They lost to Pacelli and Brookstone last year. But they had resiliency, and they were able to bounce back and finish second in their region behind Lee Scott Academy and make it all the way to the championship game. They're hoping to duplicate that this year. Glenwood has not won a football championship since the early 90s, and they would like to do that this year. But Lee Scott Academy is a very tough team. They got a very good head football coach, Buster Daniel. They're one of the best in the Chattahoochee Valley. All right, so I had Glenwood at number 4. Number 5, Opelika. Opelika missed the playoffs last year. But Opelika, who has to play Thompson this year, Opelika is going to have their hands full. If they can find a way to get into the playoffs and sneak past teams like Smith Station, Dothan, they got to beat Enterprise. They got to find a way to sneak into the playoffs. They had a good season last year, but because the region was so tough, Opelika missed out on the playoffs. But Opelika is a good team that could get into the playoffs. That's why I have them ranked 5 here on this list. Number 6, the Hanley Tigers. Yes, Hanley is in the Chattahoochee Valley. It's up in Roanoke. Hanley lost to Montgomery in the quarterfinals. Remember, Hanley won the state championship in 2020. The Hanley Tigers, one of those talented teams in the Chattahoochee Valley. Number 7, and new to my list from last year, the Valley Rams. I think the Valley Rams, who missed the playoffs last year, are ready for a bounce-back year. They have a talented cornerback, Jay Harper, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the state. Cam Dooley was a playmaker, a dual-threat quarterback. And the Valley Rams, I got them back in my top 10. Right behind them is a region foe. That Valley-Beauregard game is going to be huge because it could determine who's going to win that region and make it into the playoffs. The Beauregard Hornets, who lost in the second round to UMS Wright Prep. They had a great season. Ja'Cory Tarver, great running back. I mean, Beauregard came out of nowhere, and nobody expected it. Number 9, the Eufaula Tigers. Their Super Bowl winning head coach, Jarrell Jernigan, is in his second year with the Eufaula Tigers. They lost to Faith Academy in the first round last year. I think that Eufaula is going to have a pretty good season. And number 10, the Lynette Panthers. They got a new head football coach, Coach Chip Siegel. They did lose to B.B. Comer in the first round of the playoffs last year, but they had some tough opponents in their region like Highland Home and Reeltown. And they had such a great season when they had head coach Clifford Story there, winning state titles in 2017 and 2019. And Coach Siegel is going to carry on the legacy that Coach Story had there. And Dan Washburn Stadium is going to be lit on Friday nights as the whole town of Lynette will come on out and support the Lynette Panthers. And don't forget, September 1st, the very underrated rivalry, Lynette and Valley. And that's going to be at Ram Stadium. All right, that's my top 10 for East Alabama. Now, it's time to reveal my top 10 for West Georgia. And at number 1, I've got the Troup County Tigers. Now, Troup County, they got Teo Todd coming back. You know, he's the 3-star quarterback that's committed to Georgia Southern. They got Noah Dixon, a very talented safety, Qua Birdsong, a very talented linebacker. So, you know, they got some players on their team for head football coach Tanner Glisson. Troup County, who made it all the way to the semifinals, ended up losing to the eventual state champion Benedictine in 4A. Well, looking at their schedule, you still have LaGrange, you still have Whitewater and Stars Mill. You know, they have some tough opponents. I think Callaway is going to be a very tough opponent for the Troup County Tigers this year. And they opened the season with Harris County at Callaway Stadium. All right, number 2, Schley County. Schley County had a special season last year, making it all the way to the state title game against Bowden. And Schley County has got a talented 4-star wide receiver, Jalewis Solomon. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's actually undecided. And I think that Schley County is going to compete for a state title once again. Number 3, the St. Anne Pacelli Vikings. Head coach Dwight Jones has got a team that went and won their first ever state title in the GIAA, beating Stratford Academy, which they do play Stratford Academy on September the 15th at Dymel Field. And they do have a tough game against Tatnall Square Academy. And, of course, the battle for the Brucelli Jug taking on Brookstone is always tough. But they open the season at the Swamp in Glenwood. That's going to be a great game. Cam Ellis is graduated, their quarterback. Jalen Turner, he's also graduated. This is going to be a young team, but I think the Pacelli Vikings can duplicate what they did as state champions in 2022. Number 4, the Carver Tigers. Head coach Pierre Coffey in his second year. They do have a new running back that transferred from Spencer, Tony Montgomery. And the Carver Tigers, who lost to Oconee County 14-6 in the quarterfinals, they want to try to get back to that level when they made it to the state championship in 2021. The Carver Tigers stand for excellence. When you think of talented football players in Columbus, you think of Carver. I mean, you think of all the talented players like Isaiah Crowell and Jarvis Jones and Nate Odoms and some great football players, and DJ Jones, of course. I mean, the Carver Tigers, they open the season against Hardaway, and they got some tough opponents. They have to take on Brookwood on the road. They are 7A school. And then they take on Hayfield Charter. And then that region, Thomasville, that's going to be a very tough game. Crisp County is going to be a tough game, and they have some talented players. Even though Carver's playing in 3A, they still have some opponents that are considered very tough opponents, but I do have them at number 4. Number 5, I have the Callaway Cavaliers. Head coach Pete Wiggins has been doing it for years. He's been there 20 years. The Callaway Cavaliers won their state championship in 2020 when they came so close. And, you know, their quarterback, Deshaun Coleman, was just a special playmaker. And Callaway, who lost to Appling County in the quarterfinals. They went to the Final Four the year before, and then they won the championship in 2020. Callaway has had great players in their school, like Jacksonville Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby. They have also had the former Georgia wide receiver Terry Godwin. Callaway is one of those teams, and now they're in 2A. I mean, you got some tough opponents like Eagles Landing Christian Academy. You got Columbia. You do have some tough opponents, but they have to get right on the mat that first week of the season at Callaway Stadium on August the 25th, actually. So on August 25th, Callaway has to play Cedartown. That is going to be a massive game. Cedartown always competes for a state title in 4A. And then the following week, they take on Troup County. So Callaway is going to be one of these teams that can compete for a state title in 2A. Number 6, I got the LaGrange Grangers. They seem to improve this year, making it to the first round of the playoffs, losing to Burke County last year. But LaGrange got some players that are coming back on this team as well. And I think that they are going to be one of the top teams in their region. Manchester at number 7. Manchester is going to be tested early when they take on Columbus at Kinnett Stadium. But the Manchester Blue Devils, they proud of that state championship they won in 1997. When I drive through Manchester, it's really all about Manchester Blue Devil football when you go through that city. And, that town, by the way, it's a very small town, but they really take pride in the Manchester Blue Devils. And they're going to have their hands full, losing in the second round to the eventual state champions Bowden. I think that game against Schley County could determine where Manchester is going to go when it comes to state playoffs, because they're a team that's capable of making the state playoffs. Let's just see how far they get. The Northside Patriots, I got them at number 9. They're not going to drop off a whole lot because Caden Clay is coming back at quarterback, but they are really going to try to find out how they're going to duplicate what Malachi Hosley did as a running back last year. And the Northside Patriots, they made the playoffs last year. They lost to Warner Robins in the second round of the playoffs, 38-7. But I think that Northside, in a division where they went undefeated in their region, they had teams like McIntosh, and Harris County is going to improve. And you're going to see a team like Northgate give Northside a run for their money. Northside has to play LaGrange on the 25th. They do have Columbus in week 1, but I think that's going to be the big test, is when they host LaGrange at Kinnett Stadium on August the 25th. And finally, wrapping up my top 10 for West Georgia, the Spencer Green Wave. Spencer, who went to the playoffs last year against Berrien, they won their first region title in school history in the GHSA. I mean, they did win it before 1970, before they got into the GHSA. The Spencer Green Wave, they are going to be tested week 2 against Carver in the Heritage Bowl. But, they open up the season with Greenville, and they also are going to take on teams in their region like Northeast and Ace Charter, top teams in this region. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited about seeing the high school media days, because even though we're covering all these teams, I want to see what Kendrick and Jordan does for this upcoming season, especially with the new reclassification, especially with them going down to 2A. Can Kendrick and Jordan compete and do well in 2A? Because, they are in a perfect position to actually win some games and compete for a playoff, even though in their region there's 7 teams and only 4 make the playoffs. Some of these regions there's only 5 teams, so every team but one makes the playoffs. Some of the teams are kind of on the outside looking in. The Shaw Raiders, I think that they start winning some games, they'll be up there. They did start the year 2-0 last year, and they did make the playoffs. But there's so many talented teams in West Georgia, in the Chattahoochee Valley. It's hard to put a team like Shaw or Hardaway in this list. But if they start winning some games, yeah, I'll definitely put them back in my top 10. And I always have fun doing this top 10 list. So last year I had it on my show. On Fridays, I would have my high school football preview review show, where not only would I do a top 10, but I would also give you the candidates for high school game of the week. I will not reveal that till next week. So you want to stay tuned for that. All right. So with that being said, we do have an NFL game today. It's the Hall of Fame game going on right now at the Tom Benson Stadium in Canton, Ohio. And right now the New York Jets without Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is not playing in this game. The New York Jets leading the Cleveland Browns 16-14. Zach Wilson 3 for 5 with 65 yards. The former Texas A&M quarterback, Kellen Mond, he's got a touchdown and a pick for the Cleveland Browns. So I'm just glad football is back. The NFL preseason will continue next week. Remember, there's only 3 preseason games. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break for the radio station only. And when we come back, going to have my NFL 32 teams in 32 days. I'm previewing the Cincinnati Bengals. You don't want to go anywhere. It's a Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. As always, I am your host, Richard Holdridge. This is episode 678, just in case you are keeping score at home. And it's about that time here on the show where I do my NFL 32 teams in 32 days. And today I'm previewing the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, at one time, the Cincinnati Bengals were considered one of the worst teams in the NFL. They did not win a playoff game since 1990. And they finally broke that streak in 2021 when they finally won a playoff game and they ended up going to the Super Bowl. That's because they have a very special quarterback in Joe Burrow. But the Cincinnati Bengals, even with Marvin Lewis and the Andy Dalton years, they were always snake bitten and they could not get over the hump. Even when they had 5 straight seasons of making the playoffs, they fell off a little bit. And a lot of people were even wondering if Zach Taylor was the right guy in Cincinnati. Well, the thing is, when you have a coach, an offensive mind like Zach Taylor, you get the right quarterback, and then all of a sudden you look like a genius. Insert Joe Burrow, his rookie season. You know, he had a tough time. It was the COVID year. He did get hurt. His second year, he leads the Cincinnati Bengals to a 10-7 record and a trip to the Super Bowl where they ended up losing to the Los Angeles Rams. But I am convinced if they had a decent offensive line, Joe Burrow would have just enough time to get a pass off that probably would have led the Cincinnati Bengals to winning that Super Bowl. Fast forward to 2022, the Bengals improve as a team, going 12-4. They upgraded their offensive line. They beat the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round, but cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship to a hobbled Patrick Mahomes and a heroic effort. I still think the Cincinnati Bengals are a Super Bowl favorite in the AFC. It's not a disrespect to Kansas City. I mean, they're obviously the dynasty in the 2020s. But if you put the top teams in the AFC, it's Kansas City, it's Cincinnati, and Buffalo. It's those 3 teams. So you know that Cincinnati is going to be there. And maybe they could get over the hump and they could beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and look at the depth chart for the Cincinnati Bengals. Make no mistake about it. I know that Patrick Mahomes right now is considered the GOAT. Joe Burrow is right there. He has got all the special tools. Yes, Patrick Mahomes wows you on the highlight reels. But Joe Burrow is just cool and collected as they could be. And he has his favorite target from college, Jamar Chase. Their wide receiver core has got to be top 5 in the league. Joe Mixon, who's willing to take less money so he could play for a Super Bowl team, a very good running back. I had him on fantasy 1 year. But the wide receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, does it really get any better than that? I mean, that's incredible. Irv Smith Jr., the free agent that came over from the Minnesota Vikings, their offensive line actually is better this year than it was last year. You got Orlando Brown that came over from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be their left tackle. They're going to move Jonah Williams to right tackle. You got Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, Cordell Volson. Great offensive line. I think that Cincinnati is going to gradually improve on the offensive line, and their defense is very underrated. Sam Hubbard, a game wrecker, DJ Reader, BJ Hill, Trey Hendrickson, great defensive line. Their linebackers, Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, Cam Taylor Britt is in the secondary, Dax Hill, Nick Scott, Chibobe Awezi, and Mike Hilton. Yes, they're going to miss Jesse Bates. He is now with the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think the Cincinnati's defense has dropped off that much. But I want to take a look at the schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to make a prediction on this show, and I promise I'm not going to predict 9-8 like I did with all the other teams. But the Cincinnati Bengals, week 1, they take on the Cleveland Browns. And yes, it is in Cleveland. I'm not impressed with the Browns this year. I really think that Kevin Stefanski's on the hot seat. I think the Bengals win this game. And then they host the Baltimore Ravens week 2. They're going to win that game. So Bengals are going to be 2-0. Week 3 on Monday Night Football. It's a rematch of the Super Bowl from 2 years ago. I believe they beat the Rams to go to 3-0. And I think they're going to beat the Titans to go 4-0. They take on the Cardinals. I mean, come on. The Bengals will be 5-0. And then they host the Seahawks, 6-0. This is where they're going to suffer their first loss of the season, when they take on the San Francisco 49ers at Levi Stadium. But it's going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to this game. That is going to be October 29th. Man, I think that is the day that we're leaving to go on vacation. Well, that's why you watch football on the phones. I just got to make sure my wife's driving in the car that day. All right. And then the rematch of the divisional playoffs. It's on the Sunday night game, the Buffalo Bills and the Bengals. I think the Bengals win that. I think they beat the Texans. They're going to lose to the Ravens. They're going to beat the Steelers. I think they lose to the Jaguars. So what do we got? 3 losses so far? They beat the Colts. They beat the Vikings. I think they lose to the Steelers. And they lose to the Chiefs. And they beat the Browns to end the season. So I'm predicting that the Bengals are going to be 12-5. They could be 13-4. But 12-5, going to be one of the top teams in the AFC, right alongside with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. I have yet to preview the Buffalo Bills. I got one more team in the AFC North, and that will be on Monday. I will preview the Cleveland Browns. And then we got 8 teams left, all the teams in the NFC East and all the teams in the AFC East. And I'm hoping when it's time to preview the Dallas Cowboys that maybe I can get Gabe Reynolds on. He's a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan. I think he would love that. It's a pretty fun segment. Don't forget, tomorrow, Thrift Behringer and I will be live at Muskogee County Media Days. We're going to live stream the event on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. You want to check it out, go ahead and like the Facebook page. I'll try to share it on my Facebook page as well. And I want to try to get some interviews for the podcast. Don't forget that you can catch an episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, out of Noonan, Georgia. I know that's a handful. Hey, Harris County was playing tonight. They're in a rain delay. I'll go ahead and I'll try to get a score update for you, as you can catch this game on ESPN Plus. I mean, this is pretty cool that Harris County is playing right now, and trying to see what we got here, as I don't see a score just yet. They might still be in a weather delay, but I will try to get an update for you as much as I can. I think they might still be in a weather delay. Yes. So they are still in a weather delay at Warner Robins. They were supposed to start at 7 on ESPN Plus. So what do we got here? Yeah, they're still in a weather delay. All right. So maybe they're not going to be able to get this game in today. That maybe they might have to play this game tomorrow. The Braves were off today, but they will take on the Chicago Cubs. And Max Fried is expected to make his return to the Braves lineup as he is going to start the game 1, taking on the Chicago Cubs. First pitch, 2:20. Don't forget that the Columbus Chattahoots are at Ivy Watson Field Friday, taking on the Gainesville Gold Diggers for game 2. They did drop game 1, 8-5 to Gainesville. They got to win at Gainesville for game 2 to try to get it back to historic Golden Park for game 3. So want to keep an eye on the Columbus Chattahoots. Don't forget the Columbus Lions have a special announcement at noon tomorrow. Gee, I wonder what it is. I can't wait. I will keep you informed as much as I can. And also don't forget, I plan on having Tanya Chavez on the show on Monday talking about the Women's World Cup. Hopefully, we'll talk about the United States advancing out of the round of 16 against Sweden. And they really got to play their A game. I mean, they're getting called out by former players like Carly Lloyd. I mean, I think that they need to win that game, obviously, to make it out of the round of 16. Hang on 1 second as I'm trying to get some score updates. So the round of 16 is set after earlier this morning. Germany is eliminated. They tied South Korea. Morocco, how about the Morocco women's national team making it to the round of 16? The men's national team made it all the way to the semifinals, and now the Moroccan women's national team makes it to the round of 16. Here's what the round of 16 looks like tomorrow, actually in a couple hours. Switzerland taking on Spain at 1 o'clock in the morning. Japan taking on Norway. And the Netherlands taking on South Africa. Sweden taking on the United States on Sunday at 5 o'clock in the morning. On Monday, you got England taking on Nigeria. And then Australia taking on Denmark. On Tuesday, the round of 16 wraps up with Colombia taking on Jamaica. Two unlikely countries making it to the round of 16. I can't believe that the winner of that game is going to make it to the quarterfinals. That's incredible. And then France taking on Morocco. Hey, France played Morocco in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. It's pretty amazing that these two teams get to face off each other on the women's side. I tell you, I've had a fun show. But, none of this could have been possible without the help of my broadcasting colleagues. I just want to give a shout out to Thrift Behringer for believing in me, giving me an opportunity to not only be on the radio, but helping live stream games and sporting events. And none of this could have been possible without just his expertise and knowledge of sports and just allowing me to do that. I also want to thank Ryan O'Neill, the station manager at WQEE. Now, I wouldn't have been motivated to do an hour-long show 5 days a week if I didn't have a platform to put this on. I'm on a radio station. It's on 5 days a week from 2 to 3. I'm now having crossover shows. I reached out to Brian Snow. He plans on coming on the show next week. I was on Rod Peterson's show. I had Rod Peterson on my show. I have had best of shows, and I'm hoping to get some guests on, like maybe Jake Crane could possibly come on next week. And then I'm trying to get Ryan Nelson on as well. Not Ryan Nelson, Ryan Frederick. Sorry. My first ever guest. Hopefully he can come on too, lifelong Miami Hurricanes fan. But it's been a while trying to get John Nelson. That's who I was thinking of. I wasn't thinking of Ryan Nelson. I was thinking of John Nelson. I would love to get John Nelson on to talk high school sports. I've had Matt Stewart on. And so as I continue doing this show, thank you so much for your support. Make sure you leave a 5-star review and go subscribe to the podcast. I'm also on YouTube trying to build my audience, trying to get more subscribers. So check it out. I'm on YouTube. Just type the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and you'll be able to find me. Hope everybody has a great rest of your night. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow at Media Days for Muskogee County. I cannot wait, as I'll be there with Rip Behringer, and we will be live streaming it. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.